Hello and welcome to Talking Books. I'm Jill de Villiers. Why do some companies and organizations achieve sustainable growth and success while others flounder? What are the critical factors that predict success or failure? With me is leading organizational strategy consultant and author Thabang Motsohi to give us some insight into his book, Fit for Purpose: Why Leadership with Contextual Intelligence is Key to Sustainable Organizational Success. Welcome, Thabang, and thanks very much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Jill. Thank you so much.
Let's talk about the Fit for Purpose framework. Now, this framework can be applied to all organizations, companies, businesses, political structures, government. Tell me a little bit about what this framework and what it is.
Absolutely. The framework really has a very broad application in the sense that as long as you have an organization, you have a purpose behind it, and that purpose was set at a particular moment in time within a context. And therefore, the most important question is, going forward, is that purpose still relevant? Are the strategic objectives of these organizations making sense, given the dynamic nature in which all organizations exist? And some organizations realize, that as long as the context within which they started their business continues, and some changes in the environment can take a long time to materialize or to be realized, then it is all good. But some changes get so fast, come very quickly, especially now in the current context that we're in of the past 20 years or so. And people don't seem to realize that, and they get caught out. So it is about that. It's about how do organizations come to understand that, one, they exist in a dynamic context, and they have to focus on that dynamism. What are the key factors that are changing? How fast are they changing? Therefore, how quickly should they understand and also adapt? It's as simple as that.
So one of the key phrases in management has been emotional intelligence.
Yes.
But you bring in contextual intelligence.
Yes.
What is contextual intelligence and how do we achieve that?
Contextual intelligence really is about having the experience and the knowledge to discern, understand first, and then discern the different types of movements in the dynamic context that you are in. What is changing within the operating context that I'm in? How fast is that change? If you're able to understand that and discern that, you're in a better position to ask the question, is my organization still relevant? If it is not, what should I adjust in the purpose and perhaps as well as in the strategy? Those are questions that will always harass you, to put it mildly. And if you're blind to that because you're blinded by the success, temporary success of your organization, making profits or having a larger growing customer base, there may be change in the horizon which you don't see. And it is that capability to foresee things that are likely to happen, impending dangers, and likely opportunities for better adjustment and better growth.
Now, we've seen lately, over the past number of years, some leaders assuming that their companies have been doing well,
yes,
and that everything is going well and they don't actually have to look forward. It's a case of hubris here.
Yes.
And that can lead to corruption and misuse of power.
In fact, not only that, also danger to the sustainability of an organization. Let's take, for instance, Nokia. When Joseph Elop was still CEO there, the day he was announcing that Microsoft was taking over the organization, to his top executives, there were tears all over the place because he said, we've been doing everything right, we were correct, but the world was moving so fast we didn't see that it was moving. That is what I mean by contextual intelligence. And sometimes, you're right, absolutely correct, if you don't see these things, you can deceive yourself that you're in charge. And you can also get to a situation where you actually get into a level where you abuse power. And that happens very easily in the political environment with politicians. There's nothing more powerful than being at the head of the state.
Now, we are just ahead of the elections,
Yes.
and quite a few of the chapters you dedicate to the ANC
Yes.
and the context in which the ANC made certain decisions and where they are now.
Yes.
So take us through the context in which 1994 and how that context does not apply to today anymore.
I think that is a very, very central issue, and you may ask, wonder, why am I focusing on that? It's very simple. The ANC is in charge of the political economy, and they've been in charge since 1984. They're a very, very old organization, very powerful indeed, and they may still be in charge of this political economy for the next few, for a decade or so. But it is important to understand that things have changed. When they took power, in 1994, they were faced with a very serious question. How do we change what we have inherited in order to meet the aspirations of the people, which were absolutely genuine, necessary, and the need was extremely high? How do we do that? And the only way you do that is to have what you call a capable state, because it's all about delivery of what people expect. And if you don't have a capable state, you cannot meet the aspirations of the people. We try to do that. We try to make sure that we have an absolutely crisp and well-tuned SARS. We made sure that the treasury was, equipped, properly structured and had the right competencies. Why was that necessary? We needed more revenue in order to meet our social, expenditure needs. We needed to make sure that we manage our debt situation, which was very high at the time we inherited power. And we did very well until about 1978. We had about 28% debt, to GDP at the time. That's a nice and very, very wonderful foundation on which now to start growing further. But the question is, was the ANC really structured properly to be able to govern a state? Is the tripartite alliance the right instrument when in fact it was conceived for a different purpose? Now, fit for purpose says you can start with a definition of what you want to do, which is a purpose, but that must change as circumstances and context change, and the context has changed. You're no more fighting an enemy, a unitary enemy, where you're trying to mobilize the whole of society to be behind you. You are now trying to meet the diverse needs of people with high expectation in a new democratic environment, that actually says you can dream what you wish. You can realize your self-worth in this environment. How do you do that? Unless you have a capable state, unless you structure yourself in such a manner that you're able to take clear decisions on policy as well as strategy. That is where the issue is.
Now, you quote at one point in the book, you quote Frantz Fanon, who said that after the colonial era, a lot of people regressed back to what the previous people did. Do you think this is a sort of thing that started happening after the first few years of democracy?
Fanon was a very interesting psychiatrist in the sense that he was concerned with the mentality of the post-colonial leadership. What is it? Are they going to be aware that in fact they're facing new demands? And are they going to behave accordingly? Which means they have to live up to the trust that has been put upon them. They're going to deliver the services as expected, in the context of the attractions that come with power. And remember, South Africa, unlike many other African states, was, the democratic, state inherited a highly sophisticated economy. Actually, a very, very highly industrialized economy. And it's an envy of many. But now the question is, how are you going to manage that when in fact most of the leadership that was coming into power have never run a government, have never run a public service? These are critical questions that we have to
You
to
talk
consider.
about competence as well, and the
Yes.
competence specifically in terms of the SOEs.
Yes.
And you have several chapters as well on the SOEs, on SAA, for example, and how the competency levels were not carried through or proper. Could you expand a little bit on that?
Actually, on the SOEs, it's a very interesting, that's where you get the mismatch between context and what must be done. I devoted a chapter to South African Airways, for instance. The world moved, since 1992 around SAA. And SAA was trying very much to live within the context, but the decision-making processes were too slow. It was still within Transnet. Even when it was taken out of Transnet to try to make sure that we get someone else to try to make it work, it took a long time. By 2002, of course, it was in a better shape. But since then, we literally degraded it through incompetent management. And the same story you find with ESCO. If you don't have the right people, professional people, on these critical organizations that are highly complex in the first place and very technical, you'll take a nosedive. That is a certainty. And the important thing is that for both companies, context has moved so fast. ESCOM context has moved. The mines that they're dealing with, etc., were done in the early 70s. But things are changing now. There's new technology. There are new ways of generating, power and energy. Are we taking those into account? Do we have the kind of foresight that can see that we need to adjust our structure, our strategy and structure in order to meet these new developments? It is always about reaction, the agility of a company to adjust, or an organization to adjust to the changing dynamic environment is a central problem. And that's where contextual intelligence is so important.
Okay. Now, the book is rather academic. Who
Yes.
is your audience? Who is it aimed at, and who should be reading the book?
That was a very, very difficult challenge. How do you take such a naughty subject and make it readable? And I've tried very much to do so in the book. Students will find it absolutely beautiful because it's got case studies in there. Business people will find it very informative. So the whole idea was to, after so many years, over 2 decades of strategy consulting, I thought, let me just curate what I've been writing about into one source. And it's easy then to go into any other chapter to inform yourself. What is he saying about this? What is this contextual intelligence? Where did this go wrong? Why? And what were the underlying factors? So it's a knowledge source. And I think any other person will find it quite informative. If you read it slowly, you find it is very, very easy to understand.
So people in business and government should also be reading this.
Oh, absolutely. But the question is, will they read it with an open mind? The thing about knowledge is that you must accept it as it comes and then make up your mind about it. Some may think that, okay, why so much a high concentration on the ANC? And I've explained that. It's simple. They are in charge of the political economy. And within that economy, everything else happens.
Thabang, thank you so much for coming in and chatting to us.
No, it's a great pleasure, Jean. Thank you so much indeed.
So my guest today is Thabang Motsohi, and his book is Fit for Purpose: Why Leadership with Contextual Intelligence is Key to Sustainable Organizational Success. And that was it for this edition of Talking Books. Thanks for watching.